Escamilla. It's a pleasure having you back right here at Third Phase of Moon. It's been a while since we spoke last. What's going on in your life, Jose?
Oh, a lot of things, man. I'm Roswell Rods. We just uncovered some new evidence that's just going to blow people away, turn the tide on the debunkers, and a lot of stuff. Just a lot of things happening, man. How you guys doing?
You know, Third Phase of Moon is getting the word out. I think we're up to approximately getting close to approaching 90,000 subscribers by the end of the month, and over 61 million views worldwide. And you know, it's counting down, and the word's getting out. And we appreciate you having you back on the show. And you know, things are doing good. Let's get to you know, battle over Los Angeles. I know you've been working on this project. Tell me, I hear that you have some exclusive photographs from that scene that's never been seen before.
Yeah, I have. Actually, I have footage that I feel is from the Army installation over in MacArthur, Fort MacArthur, and also a photograph that was actual. You know, the actual LA Times photo that was released back in '42 was released backwards. It's not actually, and it was highlighted. The light beams were highlighted quite a bit. And, you know, you can count, I think there's like about 9 or 10 search lights on it. But the original photo had like 33 lights on it. So it's a total different view. And I've been working on that film, you know, since 2010. That's when I started writing the screenplay. When I heard that Sony was going to make Battle Los Angeles, I said, well, I better write, you know, do the documentary at least. You know, because no telling how they're going to make the other one. And it turns out that Battle Los Angeles turned out to be a farce. You know, they didn't even show the battle as it went down. Instead, it was a total different thing. It was like a video game on film, a $76 million video game. So I've decided to make the Battle of Los Angeles more of a docudrama, where it's a lot of the reenactments and, you know, actual actors and actresses portraying the roles of some of the people that were involved. And we've got some dynamic special effects being made showing the battle as it went down from different points of view, you know, because there were like over 1 million people that witnessed it. And especially in the area in Culver City where it hovered right above this lady's house whose name was Katie. So it's going to be an incredible film, man. It's going to be awesome. It's just I'm still trying to raise money to finish it, you know. Takes cash.
Well, we're going to be posting a link below so people could help out Jose Escamilla on this project that he's working on, Battle over Los Angeles. Dr. Jandy Elias, go ahead.
You know, Battle of Los Angeles is a great case because A, it happened before Roswell. B, the Army says that it was because of wartime jitters. Wartime jitters do not account for firing 1,200 projectiles into the air, killing 6 civilians, and more importantly, there's a photograph on the cover of LA Times and new footage, like you just said. How are we shooting at nothing is the official explanation when there's photographic evidence that there's something that we are shooting at. That's what is so mind-boggling to me.
Well, you know what was originally said before they made that explanation of jitters, you know, war nerves and everything, is that they said I was nothing but a weather balloon. That's the first time the weather balloon excuse was used to explain away a UFO. And what, you know, Roswell was not the first time they used a weather balloon. It was actually the Battle of Los Angeles. And so, you know, and it was the Navy and the Pentagon and the White House that said it was a weather balloon. And the Army got mad because they said, man, we just fired a weather balloon. You're killing us. You know, so it made them look like idiots, man. If they can't bring down a flimsy weather balloon, what are they going to do against a real target, you know? So, and it was shrapnel, anti-aircraft shrapnel. Man, they would have ripped a weather balloon, like, immediately, you know? So, there was a fight.
1,200 rounds to a weather balloon. Like you said, shrapnel would have ripped it to shreds. How are they saying we fired 1,200 rounds to where the spotlight was going and we didn't tear this weather balloon down? I think that's just the worst excuse they can make.
Well, that's the first excuse they made. And then they changed it. You know, after the newspaper started slamming them, said, this is not a weather balloon, you know. They changed it to war nerves, and then they said, no, it was a spy plane that came in over our airspace, and it was just all sort of ludicrous statements. But what happened is that same morning, because this happened at 2:25 a.m. in the morning on February 25th, 1942, the Army and Navy and Pentagon officials, they went house to house in the area where the shrapnel fell and where most of the fires were, where the ship hovered directly above this neighborhood in Culver City, and had people sign away that they would not talk to the media or mention this to anyone until after the war, because of the war effort. So a lot of people signed, a document stating that they would be fined $10,000 or $25,000 or something, and put in jail if they spoke about this. And that's where it started, the fear-mongering, the ridicule and all that. But there were news reporters there that kept everybody in check. In those days, the media was not bought by the government. It was they actually took tabs on the top brass. So a lot of the reporters that were there from all over the world, they witnessed this thing. A lot of them saw it, and they interviewed a lot of the people that witnessed it from different areas of the neighborhood, different parts of the city, and that's what this film is based on. And the vantage point of the UFO. I mean, there was a policeman that was in Culver City, and he said that he saw silver discs coming out of a dark cloud. And that's kind of reminiscent of Independence Day, where the clouds are coming in and these UFOs are coming out of the clouds. But that's the way this guy described it in 1942. And then there was another military, a lot of military people, they said that they looked like, they called them mystery planes. And there were dozens of them flying all over LA, So it was a hell of an event, man. I'm going to capture that.
I've actually heard reports. Go ahead, Blake.
Okay, Jose's been, you've been investigating this event in 1942. Have you interviewed anybody personally that's witnessed it for themselves? Because these guys are getting up there in age, and I'm sure there are not many of them around right now.
We have one left, and he's in Culver City. He's 84 years old, and his daughter works at Lionsgate Films. And it turns out that he was in Santa Monica. He was like 16 or 17. He was ready to join the Army, and he witnessed it. He said it was not a weather balloon, it was not an airplane, it was nothing more. It said it was an object that was unidentified. It was a big orange, yellow, lozenge-looking thing. And he said, and it was huge and massive. And he saw it before the searchlights hit it. So did the lady that, and we're going to interview him, by the way, this month. We're going to Culver City, and we're going to meet with him and interview him, because he's the last one, man. The one that was that passed away a couple of years ago was Scotty, and he passed away. I didn't get to interview him, but there's plenty of interviews of his that I can license, But I'm recreating a lot of the scenes. I'm actually going to cast an actor to portray this gentleman. His name is John, and portray him at his young age of 17 when he's witnessed it. And the way he describes it, man, it's amazing. He's got vivid memory, too, of that event. It stuck to him all these years. He says, I'll never forget that, man. He said, that was incredible.
Two things I got to throw about that. First, the witnesses, you're right. They're getting old in age. And I don't like how the skeptics say, on their dying declaration right before they die on their deathbed, they make up a false story, which is not true. When you're leaving to go see your maker, you're going to tell the truth. But more importantly, Preston Dennett, MUFON researcher, 23 years, has stated that during the Battle of Los Angeles, we actually took down 2 of their craft. One that crashed in the Pacific Ocean and one that crashed in the San Bernardino Mountains. Do you know anything about that?
Oh, yeah, we're going to portray that, too. And one of them was brought down in Long Beach. There were actually 3 brought down. One in Long Beach, and it was a 30-foot diameter saucer. There was one brought down, and it landed in San Clemente Island, and the Navy extracted that one. And then the ones in the San Fernando, San Angeles Mountain crest, or San Angeles Mountain Forest, the Army Corps retrieved that one. And guess where those 3 ships were taken? Oh, there was also 2 aliens that were brought out of the one in Long Beach. They were 9 foot tall, and they were Nordic-looking types, blonde hair. And they were all taken, and witnesses, I witnessed this that morning, man. So they took them, all three craft and the two aliens. They took them to an area that is now known as Area 51. So even back then, that facility was there.
Blake?
Jose, while we're talking, when we post this radio show up on Third Phase, we sure would like to share your movie trailer, Battle of Los Angeles. Would that be fine?
Yeah, it's there on YouTube, my YouTube channel.
All right, great. We'd like to, showcase that trailer because it is, coming along, and the graphics that are portraying this event that happened are absolutely amazing. Let's talk about some of your other upcoming projects, like, are you going to be still doing, you said you're going to be updating the Skyfish rod, phenomenon?
I'm doing a film called Roswell Rods, and this is going to be the final chapter in the Rods saga. The reason being is
you've been studying this 20 or 30 years right now, so this is going to be your, walk away moment, saying this is the final say I have on the rods, and let it be.
Yeah, we found some footage. There's been researchers all over the world filming for rods. We have incredible footage of squadrons of these things high up in the atmosphere, also at 15, 20,000 feet above ground, with parachutists interacting with parachutists. And then also there's some Canadian.
Over the years that we've, Jose, we've actually submitted a couple videos that we've shot of these skyfish and rods moving at incredible speeds, and they like caves for some odd reason. We're filming a film called The Night Marchers in regards to the legend here in Hawaii about the ancient spirits. And while we're shooting this, there was a police officer in the scene. He's a real police officer, and these rods were zooming by him. And we actually showed the police officer later on this footage, and he was pretty much freaked out by what he saw, and he couldn't believe it. And what was your take on it? I think you saw some of this, and it was in one of the shows that you produced.
Yeah, it was a show that we did for Fox, remember? Fox TV?
Yeah, so Nash Entertainment, that's right.
Yeah, Nash Entertainment. And, that was pretty cool footage, man. It was the first time I met you guys, you and your brother, So we've been friends ever since, and this new footage that has come out, we have many clips of squadrons of these things, man, up to 40 at one time. And they're high in the clouds, high above, taken with infrared and ultraviolet filters, which film only things that are in the invisible light spectrum. And so, and then we also have footage of them taken by a Canadian film group that has been filming rods for the last 2 or 3 years at 30 degrees below weather, which is very cold, and insects don't exist in that kind of environment.
This rod story is beyond amazing. I like it because there's so much footage. You have this one footage of this base jumper jumping into this cave, and there's this rod that just flies right by him. And some of these things are several feet long, and if you see the way they fly, it's like whatever appendages they have on their side are kind of ruffling. I mean, it's just an amazing thing, and I don't know how it could be dismissed so easily when it's all over the place.
Well, a lot of the fault in people dismissing the rods as insects is because of the History Channel, Monster Quest. There's been a couple of other TV shows that were done on them, debunking them, saying they're simply nothing but camera artifacts. But I'm going to address all those issues, and we're going to prove that rods are not only real, but we're going to show how a lot of these networks have lied to the American people and viewers all over the world by creating this nonsense, these lies, deliberate lies about the rods, man, to try to keep them under wraps, when in reality these things are very real. So
Jose and
film.
John NDL, I just sent you a link courtesy of Project UFOs, and it's some new footage of just a swarm of rods. I've never seen a video quite like this. They're definitely not bugs. These things are, staying in their formation, and they're not changing shape. If you guys could take a look at this real quick, and we could comment it on while we're doing the show.
Okay, sure.
Sure, I'm looking at it right now. But I'm watching this swarm right now, and this is insane. I mean, 40, 50, 60, maybe even more. What is this, like a breeding ground for these rods? And just like I was saying, Jose, in your footage, in your videos, you know, you analyze how these things fly. Right here, Blake, in the one that you just sent me, one of these things, fairly long. I mean, if I was to guess by the feet of the size of the trees and everything else in respect to that, I would say this is about 2 to 4 feet long.
I would say you're pretty close to it. I was thinking more about 4 to 5 feet myself, but they're moving so fast, and you know, there was no shutter speed on it. It's HD video, and there's footage. It seems like it's slowed down and blown up, so getting a really good look at it, and you could tell that the legs on these things, they don't change up. Like in a shutter speed, it'd be inconsistent. Jose, are you looking at this video?
Yes, I am.
Tell me, what do you think of it so far?
Pretty wild stuff. I'd like to know what shutter setting they had this on, though.
With an SLR?
Yeah, but what I'm talking about is the shutter setting is what we did back in 1994, because I wanted to make sure, when I first saw the rods in the viewfinder, I said, that's a bug, that's an insect, that's a bird, that's a bug, you know, because they were streaking by. I thought it was an insect close to the lens of the camera. That's the first indication I got. But I was filming at a 1/2000 shutter setting, manual setting, not auto, not normal setting on the camcorder, which, you know, if you want to film a wedding, you can film in broad daylight and just set it at your normal or auto setting for autofocus. And you're going to film at about 1/500 shutter setting, 1/250 to 1/500 up to 1,000, 1/1000. But that's anything that passes by is going to elongate as a blur. It's going to be a motion blur. When you film at the highest shutter setting, like 1/2000, I think today's cameras have up to 1/40,000, you know, shutter setting, which is like extremely clarity. When you film it even at 1/2000, okay, an insect is an insect. You can tell by the wings and the antenna. A bird is a bird. You can definitely see the wings and the little beak and all that. And a rod is a rod. You can definitely see the elongated shape. And what we did is I had to do the camera test because I was seeing a lot of stuff in the 1/1000 shutter setting that was similar to this, but it seems to me they might have been just insects because of the camera shutter setting. So this one, I don't know. And here's another thing too. When you're filming insects at a low shutter setting, or even at night, okay? Especially at night, forget it, man. At night, you compromise your shutter setting. They will be elongated like some of these images I'm seeing here. Very long, okay? And then they get smaller. So I don't know. I don't know if this is a bunch of insects fleeting about. You know, I don't know.
You know, Jose, you did an experiment where basically you pointed the camera up in the sky and you let it sit there for several, you know, hours, days maybe, and you are always catching these rods. So basically these things are all over the place, right?
Exactly. And let me tell you
What was
thing that we did to verify.
the largest?
What's that?
What was the largest rod that you've captured, or some of the footage that you've seen? I think you had some comparison, and they were absolutely massive.
Yeah, there's tornado footage from the Oklahoma tornado of May 1996, I believe, of a news helicopter capturing the tornado as it was ripping across Oklahoma City. And the funnel was 15 miles away from the chopper and the cameras, and there was the cloud front was 10 miles away. And out of the top of the cloud front, there's this white rod that comes out from the clouds and lasts 3 frames of video, comes out and then back into the cloud real fast. Now that thing must have been hundreds of feet in length because it was 10 miles away, and on camera it looked like it was about 2 inches long, man, you know, on the TV screen. Then there was also 2 other rods far away in the distance that are white rods, and they were longer, and they were almost half the width of the funnel, and they went directly into the funnel. You can see them going in to the funnel. And this was at 3,000 feet above the ground. So, you know, it wasn't insects close to the lens of the camera. It was something inside the clouds. And a lot of the skeptics saying, it was just ball lightning. Well, you know, you idiots, ball lightning is not elongated, you know. So that was one of the largest ones. I've seen stuff from NASA, from the International Space Station and the shuttle, of rods coming into Earth, and they're huge, man. And they're traveling at thousands of miles per hour, you know, in space especially. We have footage of them on Mars, rods on Mars, seriously, man. And you can see the elongated, the undulatory wave fins and everything like that. Unless there's insects on Mars too, these are rods, man. So we have footage of them coming out of the oceans and entering into the oceans. You know, we have a lot of things that we're going to address in this film, and people are going to realize, man, these things are freaking real all the time, man. They were always the real deal. So, but this footage, like here, you know, I don't know. I'd like to find out what setting they used. If they was normal, then it's subject to questions, you know.
One thing I'm liking about this footage, Blake, that I just saw, is the fact that in one instance, or several instances, aside from seeing the swarm in the background, you see the rods pass right in front of the camera, fairly close, and you see that mechanism on their side. And that's why I'm starting to question if it's possible to be even insects, because I've seen debunkers use insect footage, and this seems to be a little bit different. We are going on break, folks. If you just hang tight, short 2 minutes, we'll be right back with Blake Cousins and Jose Escamilla. Back, Third Phase of Moon Radio, right here live on Revolution Radio. I'm your host, Dr. J. Andy Elias, with, of course, Blake Cousins, who's working real hard to get all the footage from around the world out there. If you got anything amazing, make sure you send it via Skype or Twitter, Third Phase of Moon. We are speaking with Jose Escamilla, famed filmmaker of over 35 years. He's produced several enormously big and very important documentaries in regarding paranormal items, rods, and much, much more, including what we were talking about before break, the Battle of Los Angeles. Right before we went to break, Blake Cousins had a question for Jose, and Blake, go ahead and take it.
Well, we were looking at this rod footage, and a lot of this footage that comes in that we see, and I'm sure Jose sees, and many people from around the world, is that they seem that they're moving so fast that at times they blink out of existence to me. Do you think they could be some type of interdimensional creature?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because in this new film, I actually have footage of, in the clear blue sky, of white rods that look like ribbons, okay? And they're phasing in and out of the clear blue sky, like as if they're passing through a time warp. And they're huge, man. And they phase in and out of the blue sky, all right? So they could be interdimensional. We know that they are in space. They're traveling all over the areas in space. We now have footage, like I said, of them on Mars, or still pictures in Mars. And also of them in the ocean. They do have some kind of a life cycle in the ocean. They are able to swim in the ocean and then come out and swim in the sky. And that's what they do, is they swim through the air. They don't fly. So they have these undulatory wave fins, much like a cuttlefish. And
is it possible that these are maybe some sort of animals that have coexisted with humans, but we've just been unable to see them the entire time?
Well, yeah, they're, back when I first came out with the very first Rods documentary, the second Rods documentary, we found a creature. We went to the museums of natural history here in L.A., the one in Denver, Colorado, and we showed the footage to entomologists, we showed it to biologists, zoologists, marine biologists, and we said, is this kind of a fish, or is it an insect, or what is it, And they didn't have a clue, but they let us look at their archives of all the different types of species they have, even unknown species. And I think that we might have a creature here that evolved from millions of years ago from the oceans and learned how to fly as well. Or they're coming in from outer space and they're adaptable to any kind of environment. So or they're interdimensional. I mean, we don't know what they are. We've been trying to catch a specimen for like 19 years and have no luck. How do you catch something you can't see, you know?
Well, also, if you could catch it, people would be, I'm sure, would be getting, impaled by these things and dying all the time because they would travel and, basically burst right through a human body. How is it possible to capture one of these things is my question.
Well, I had a policeman that contacted me. He's an LAPD cop, and he was in a gang shootout, all right? He was standing behind his car.
Wow.
He had a vest on.
Yep.
And he said he saw a flash coming right at him, and he said it was too late. He couldn't move, but it hit him right in the side, in between the flaps of the vest. And he said, Jose, he says, how does it feel when you get hit by a rod? Okay. And I had other witnesses that had been struck by rods before, and they explained it this way. It feels like a jolt of electricity just hits you. You know how you bang your elbow and you get you get this
funny
tingling, your funny bone, you mean?
Yeah, either that, a mixture of that, and also, have you ever had it like your body does a twitch, like an electrical shock or something? That's the way it felt, to some people that had actually felt that they'd been hit by a rod. Well, that's what the policeman said he felt. He felt like the funny bone tingling with an electrical shock.
Real quick, Blake, for all the listeners and viewers out there, Blake, can you tell everyone where we were just watching this footage? And B, Jose, can you tell people where they can watch the films that you've made about this?
Sure. Blake?
Well, we're posting, courtesy of Project UFOs, this rod footage that they received, and we're going to be looking at it, and what we're going to be posting it right here on Third Phase of Moon. I think it's an incredible broad daylight sighting. Thousands of rods activity going on in the shot. And I know what you're saying, Mr. Jose Escamilla, about, shutter speed, and you got to take that into consideration. And we'll try and figure out exactly some more facts of what the settings were on that camera from the person who shot it.
Yeah, I'd like to go to this location if it's in the States. When I'm doing the production on rods, I'd like to go to this location and set our cameras up there, because we're going to, this time, Blake, what we're doing is Roswell Rods. We're going to try to raise $150,000 to get this film done. Okay, that's what an average TV special at Fox is done for, and we're going to take the best camera equipment, infrared, ultraviolet lens. We're going to go to all the locations like this area here. I'd like to find out where it is, because obviously if it is rod activity there, the rule of thumb is you see one, you'll see more, and that's what's happening with this footage here. But I'd like to go there with the professional cameras, high-speed cameras, the whole shebang. We're going to do it right once and for all, because we're going to get the budget. And we're going to make the best rods documentary ever in the history of rods. And I'd like to do that. I'd like to contact these people and find out where they shot this, because we used to film stuff at Midway, New Mexico in Roswell with the high shutter setting. There'd be dragonflies flying around, but high above you'd see rods, and the rods would be flying just as slow as the dragonflies, fleeting, but you know how they do right angle turns, the rods would do the same thing. So this is what's key, is finding locations where there's a lot of rod activity, like this one here, and we'll go down there and we're going to do, for the film, we're going to shoot the best rod footage ever. And that's the whole element, man, is trying to figure out what these things are. Here's another thing. There was footage taken in Gulf Breeze, Florida, back in the 90s. And there's footage. I've got it on my other computer. They've since taken it off of YouTube. But I have the footage. I'm not putting it in the film. They were shooting at the high shutter setting, 1-2000. They were shooting for rods, all right, using the eave of the eave of the rooftop, blocking the sun. But guess what? What appeared instead was a round orb, a round metallic sphere. And it's hovering there, and you can see it hovering, in its own field of gravity. And then suddenly it darts off to the left. This was on sightings too, by the way. But it darts off to the left. It turns like mercury, metallic molten mercury, as it's darting off. It's going so fast. But then in 2 frames, it looks just like a dark rod with white undulating fins on both sides. So even at the 1/2000 or higher shutter settings, maybe what we're filming are spheres that are traveling so freaking fast that even with a high shutter setting, they blur, okay? So there's a lot of things that we're going to discuss in this Rod's film. Here's another thing, though. There's Tiger Woods footage taken by CBS during the PGA tournament in August of 2006. We're all sitting at the bar watching Tiger Woods, you know, having a beer and watching the, you know, just kind of glancing at the golf tournament. And they film him using this 5,000 frames per second high-speed camera that can slow down a bullet. That's, you know, what these kinds of cameras are. And they're studying his swing, and just as he hits the ball, a white rod flies right above his head. That's about 8 inches long. And the ball takes off at 85 miles an hour, but it's pristine. I mean, you know, with these high-speed cameras, you know, there is no motion blur. Yet this rod flies through the scene faster than the ball, in super slow motion, faster than the ball at 85 miles an hour. The rod zips through. Most of the bar that we were sitting in, they go, "Rod!" Okay? And they only showed that once in that on that PGA tournament. I've got the name of it and where it was taken. So I'm going to try to allocate that footage. We get this budget. We're going to license it from CBS. And it's super slow motion footage of a rod that not only proves rods are real, but it's going to put everybody, you know, uneasy when it comes to rods, because they're going to realize these things are real after all, man. So there's a lot of things that we're doing.
That footage, I wish you luck in getting that from CBS. It's too bad they haven't rebroadcasted it, so people could have recorded that event. You know, one thing, maybe an angle you could go at on, you know, this film, and even do it as a public service announcement, is because, you know, even the symptoms that you described earlier about people possibly getting, you know, impacted by these rods, you know, it sounds to me as a description of having as people would say, having their stroke or a heart attack, some of the symptoms of this tingling sensation. And maybe there are people, you know, dying as we speak around the world, being struck by these rods, and nobody knows about it.
You never know. You never know. And here's another thing, too. There was a football game in Portland, Oregon, being filmed by, you know, local camera crew for the news. And they contacted me back in 1997, I think. It was 1997. I flew to Oregon specifically to get this footage. And they interviewed me, and they did not want to give me a copy of the footage. They said, well, you know, it's owned by the TV station, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, what it was a local football game. And one of the referees was running, you know, with the football players down the field. He gets hit by a green rod, all right? And he gets hit right on the back right side of his side. He gets hit, and he reacts, and then the rod falls to the grass, to the football field, like water. Turns into water.
So it just disintegrated right there in front of him, huh?
When it hit him, yeah. He was running, he got hit, and he reacted, but kept on running, all right? And the rod just turned into water. It looked like water splashing onto the grass.
Was this captured on film by any chance?
Yes, and I'm trying to allocate it. It turns out that one of the cameramen took the footage with him, so I'm finding it hard to find the camera guy. I don't even remember his name. You know, and the station doesn't have the guy's name or anything, so it's very difficult. So I'm going to put an ad in the Portland newspaper and request this footage, man, you know. But it was incredible footage. It was amazing.
That's definitely something we all would love to see. All the YouTube viewers, all the Revolution Radio listeners, that's something amazing to see a rod, A, in a football game, something as populated as that, B, hit somebody.
And it turns to water.
Yeah, that's just sums it all up in one and makes it show that this is not just an insect or some flying dragonfly or something, because what turns to water?
Here's another shot that we're going to put in this film. There was a camera crew from Fox at the Cave of the Swallows, you know, the cave in Mexico. And base jumpers are jumping into the cave. And the camera is a high-end broadcast camera. and it's filming the base jumper. It's focused on the base jumper. All right, he's in clear focus. He's not motion blurred or anything. He's in clear focus. He's falling straight down at what is called terminal velocity.
Yeah,
Terminal
I'm very familiar with that. I'm a skydiver myself.
Okay. Terminal velocity is anywhere from what, 95 to 100
Well,
miles
actually,
an hour?
no. It's usually 120 miles an hour minimum. Flying belly to earth, it could be as high as 140. Head down or any other position could be as high as 180, 190.
Okay, well, he was flat. He was like falling body flat-wise, you know, so...
At least 120 miles an hour.
All right, let's figuratively say 100 miles an hour, okay? Just for this explanation. So here's this base jumper falling straight down into the cave, going at about 100 miles an hour, 120. And the background, because the camera is following him so fast, the background is blurred, okay? But he's in focus. Okay, so he's falling, and then a rod flies in, and from the left part of the screen, flies in underneath his stomach, a few feet away, and this rod is about 3 feet in length. It flies underneath him and goes to a lower part, and then makes a U-turn and goes back where it comes from. Okay, all in one shot. But the key element about that is that he and the rod are both falling straight down at 100 miles an hour, and the rod has the ability to fly at an angle downward, make a U-turn, and go back at the same time falling 100 miles an hour downward. Amazing footage, if you can imagine that.
Blake, are you there?
You've also you've also done all kinds of work besides the rods and battle over Los Angeles. You've worked a lot on, the cover-up of, color on the moon, possibly atmosphere, vegetation growing on it. Tell us about that, and what do you think about these shots from the moon where it shows Earth off at a distance, where the astronauts on the surface of the moon taking, the shot of Earth, and it's in full color? Is that the way it really works?
Well, when I did UFO, The Greatest Story Ever Denied, I started making that film back in 2002. I had a section that I did on the moon because that film was entirely about the UFO phenomenon, and I had to incorporate some of the moon stuff because the astronauts saw UFOs while they were going to the moon and coming back and all that. Well, as I started doing that segment, I started realizing that a lot of the Apollo moon footage is fake. Not fake, it's real, but then it's been tampered with, I'll put it that way. Like the background, the dark sky of the moon, it's been erased. There is no photographic emulsion in the dark. Okay, if you look at an Apollo photo that has photographic emulsion in the darkness, you'll see it's got sort of noisy black background, because that's the emulsion of the film. Well, a lot of these shots, close to 97, 98% of the moon shots that were taken of the Apollo mission, from the first one to the last one, have been tampered with, where there is no emulsion noise in the dark area of the moon. And when you go to Photoshop,
what do you think they're hiding in those tampered photos?
Probably structures. We found one photo that Kerry Martinick out of Canada did some Photoshop stuff on, and we were able to pull out of that darkness emulsion area by using certain filters. We were able to pull out structures, huge structures made of glass. And so I started checking out the moon, and I go, wow, I'm going to have to do a full documentary on the moon because there's so much here. They have tampered with so many photos. It's amazing. So that's when I did Moon Rising back in 2009. When I was doing Moon Rising, I come to find out there's even more that they've done in the tampering of the footage, tampering of the imagery. And while I was doing Moon Rising, I had a shot that was going to be a CGI shot, special visual effects shot, where we were going to fly from Earth towards the moon. And the moon is high up in the sky, and we're on Earth. We're going to pass through the atmosphere and then zoom into the moon and get real close to the moon, and then zoom into the moon fast, and then we're going to see the landscapes. Well, I needed a a replica of the moon to put into my 3D CGI program. So I contacted some friends of mine that worked on Star Trek and Star Wars and all that. I said, where do you guys get these incredible looking realistic Earth shots and moon and Jupiter and all that? Is there a place to buy that, or do you guys make those up in the studio? And they said, no, man, we go to mapaplanet.org. I said, really? A couple of guys told me that. I said, so, all right. So I went to mapaplanet.org. Now, this was in February of 2009 when I was still in production on Moon Rising. So when you go to mapaplanet.org, you can see all the planets listed, and there's a photo of the moon. So you click on that photo of the moon, it takes you into a landing page that has various different photography of the moon. It's all the same area, but there's grayscale, there's black and white. Then I saw one that says natural color, and there's false color. There's all different variations of the way they photograph the surface of the moon. So when I saw natural color, I go, wow, what's this? I clicked on that, and that changed my perspective on the moon forever. There was full color photography of the moon. And what they have there is a map of the moon. That's why they call Map a Planet. It's a flattened out skin of the full surface of the moon, but flat. And what you do is you take that photo and you put it into a thing called a material shader, and you put it onto any sphere. You get a sphere in Cinema 4D, for example, the 3D program I use. You have a sphere, and then you put that shader, that map, and wrap it around the sphere, and now you've got the full moon. But I found out full color photography, and I started downloading as much photography of the color moon surface, and it's amazing, man. The color photography of the moon is absolutely amazing. It was taken in 1994 during the Clementine mission, and I downloaded 850 panels, okay, of the whole surface of the moon, the whole flat map of the moon, and they are each 45 inches by 38 inches in size. That's how big these panels are, high resolution. So I can zoom the camera real tight and get right in there, all right? 45 inches by 38 inches, man, that's huge. So I collected about 850 panels of 1.8 million digital photos that were taken. Who knows what's in the rest of those, man? I've only downloaded 850, and I've been totally turned around, man. I'm totally freaked out with what's up there. You can see structures, you can see large craft resting on craters. I mean, it's amazing. So, and I show this in the movie Celestial, my last film on the moon, which I released last year. You can see this huge object that's 20 miles long, and it looks like a giant fish with two fins resting on top of a 52-mile wide crater. So that's amazing stuff, man. And the NASA and the Department of Defense, NASA is run by the Department of Defense, by the way. It's not a civilian-owned organization like they say. The public doesn't have a clue that the Department of Defense tells NASA what to do. So
I just spoke with an engineer, and I asked him the question, what is a protocol if they do find life in the universe and, on Mars or a spacecraft in general? Not that they already know the answer to this question, but he explained to me that he really didn't have an answer on how the process would go. And basically, you're exactly right. The government, it's up to the government to state what they know, and pretty much we're not going to be holding our breath on that. But I really want to, I'm going to be leaving. I want Jose Escamilla, you're going to be sticking around for the next hour. Everybody still stick around, but I have some interviews that I got to do from the UK with breaking news, some UFO sighting that just came in, and we're going to be taking some testimony. But I really appreciate all your hard work that you've been doing, Jose Escamilla.
Hey, thank you, Blake. And you say hi to your brother for me, and blessings to you both. And continue on, man. Continue on with the journey.